Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Thobi. Welcome to BizPreneur. This evening, we're going to be talking about something that is quite current and important. We know that with COVID-19, a lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people's businesses went down. And this evening, we're going to talk about the do's and don'ts when you're looking for a job, and more importantly, what mistakes not to make. I have Thobi Mazithulel, who is an expert in this field, and she's just going to be sharing with us the hints and tips of what to do, what not to do, and how to sell yourself better. And before I spoil this introduction, Thobi, please introduce yourself.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. I have been in the executive search and specialist headhunting space since 2012. And the coaching that I do really comes from, I think, the love for seeing people succeed. But it's informed by the conversations that I've had over the years with candidates across all levels, actually. So from entry level right up to, executive or board level, and, gathering that information, analyzing it, and just noting that there are areas that everybody has challenges with. So you will find that, entry level individuals may have challenges with, CV and content and the like, but you will find an executive who needs, some sort of advice when it comes to salary negotiations. So there is always something that one can pick out and help and assist individuals with.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thobi and I have known each other without, revealing our age, since we were in preschool. So it's very lovely to be working together at this stage of our lives. So Thobi, if somebody's just lost their job or they want to make a change, what do you think is the first thing for them to start doing when they decide, I want to go into the job market?
Right. I think it's important to always make a good first impression. So in the instance that one is looking for a new opportunity, one of the first things that any recruiter or any hiring manager will see is likely to be one of your profiles. By profile, I mean it could be your CV, it could be something on LinkedIn, it could be, any other platform where individuals could go and access information or professional information about you as a job seeker. So it's important to get that right, because that lays the good foundation for you. So if your CV or your LinkedIn profile really look great, they've got very good content that's articulate and concise, and the structure also makes sense, then it does attract, I think, the eye of any hiring manager or any recruiter that may be working on that project. So there needs to be certain things in place. If we look at a CV in particular, you find that there's certain information that really needs to stand out at a glance. So this may not apply maybe in areas outside of South Africa, but you find that there's certain nuances in our market that would affect how an application is looked at. For example, you would need, to specify your ID number. That tells us quite a lot about an individual, and we already know, whether or not it's someone that you should proceed with. And then just ensuring that, qualifications are very clear on the first page. So all the personal sort of information should be on the first page, and then in chronological order state what the professional experience is, starting with the most current role, going back to the first role that one had, and also being very clear about what the responsibilities are. And ensuring that one adds their achievements as well. In some cases, one doesn't doesn't really have much to add there, maybe because of limited experience. But, you know, the more experienced candidates, you'll find that there's, you know, something to always, you know, put up and highlight for a prospective employer to look at. I think the way that one actually sets out the CV should be in such a readable manner. So I do find that some people, you know, write it as narration, if I could put it that way. So someone saying, I did this and I am so and so and this and that. I think the paragraphs, yes, could make sense, but, you know, make it a little bit easier for the person that's going to receive it. In certain instances, people receive about 300 applications and they need to go through all this. So just put it in bullet form and make it easy for people to pick out the information that they need, so that they can move on and, you know, say yes or no to what you've sent through to them. CV. Yes. And also just remembering that the person on the other side, be it a recruiter within an agency or an internal recruiter who's working, you know, within the organization that's recruiting, just remember that they are not the technical experts at times when it comes to, you know, what it is that they do. So making your CV as simple as possible, but with, you know, very good content would be, you know, the best for them. Because if there's, you know, too much of the technical side or terms that some may just not understand, then you can tell that, you know, someone may read through, misunderstand certain things, either put it through because they're not quite sure of what it is that they've been reading, or, you know, hold back because they're not sure. It is different sometimes, you know, you approach the actual hiring manager, then there the CV can actually be altered or formatted in such a way that, you know, that technical information is available. And then
maybe if I can just pause before I forget this. You mentioned something that's usually contentious, that is the ID number. And I like that you've explained why we need the ID number. Should a candidate be putting their ID number when they put their CVs on like online platforms, or only when they're sending it to a specialist recruiter? At which stage do you share that?
Okay. I think that because of, you know, the nature of our market, I don't know how to sort of diplomatically say this, things happen and it's unsafe to have your ID number everywhere. So if you have to have different versions of your CV, the better. So if you're dealing directly with a recruiter or the hiring manager or an internal, you know, HR person, then by all means have that there, because they're going to ask for it anyway. But if you are, you know, using job portals and, you know, putting your CV maybe on, you know, those portals like Indeed and the like, that can be accessed by anybody, then I would say hold back on that, and even your address and certain information. But, you know, if you're dealing with a real person, by all means, put it there. Yeah.
Awesome.
Because there is something to trace there. If anything happens, you can go back to that individual.
Okay. And then you also mentioned that the profile could be on LinkedIn, it could be your actual Word document or PDF, whatever you have. Would you advise a serious job searcher to not be on LinkedIn?
No,
does LinkedIn help?
I believe it does, because it's the first port of call for a lot of recruitment researchers, be it internal recruiters or within the agency environment. It usually is the first port of call, you know, just to check who's out there. Because remember, there's, you know, quite a number of ways of actually getting, you know, the right candidate for a role. It could be advertised selection. So there you just go through everything. But there are headhunters who rely on research and talent mapping. As much as most of the research could be done on the telephone, actually, you know, ensuring that you've got the right information. One of the first you know, platforms that recruiters will check is LinkedIn. We are aware that individuals don't really keep their LinkedIn profiles up to date. So it's just to get an idea, then follow up on, you know, what's there and ask for additional information. So yes, by all means, be on LinkedIn.
All right. So
Yeah.
we are in the digital space. So
Mhm.
if you're not there, sometimes they won't know you exist.
Mm.
So there's one you know, you spoke about putting certain things and highlighting it so that the person who's browsing through the CVs can see it.
Mm.
What's your take about adding a bit of spice on your CV just to get the recruiter to notice it, you know?
Well, that concerns me. It depends on what the spice is. If the spice is the truth, then by all means do. But usually we use that phrase you know, to describe individuals who are bulking up things. And I would say be truthful. If you do not have certain experience or a certain qualification, don't. The thing is, in any recruitment process, we go through checks. I don't know any organization that I've worked with in the past that does not go through those background checks. So the most basic are the credit check, as well as criminal records, and the one that checks qualifications. Beyond that, there are so many checks that you could go through. Even social media now, there is a check for that. So we go through everything. There's a CV check. And if things don't tally, then you know, your profile becomes questionable. So I would say be as truthful as possible. If you know you are a very good writer, then you'll be able to use certain words for your profile to stand out, but ensure that it's truthful. Yeah.
Yeah, I ask this because I've come across CVs that I think have spice added, and I've always advised people that that's self-sabotage, because they can always find out that actually you've never been a manager and you say you're a senior manager, for example. So I just wanted us to, you know, go there and say, when desperate to find that job, what are the mistakes to avoid, because they can come back to, you know, to bite us.
Absolutely.
So the inverse of that, I found also people then are modest on their CVs. What are your thoughts around that? Putting as little information as possible, what does that do in the recruitment process?
So if you come across individuals who are not very inquisitive and maybe, you know, just wanting to read through check boxes and move on, it will really put you at a disadvantage. But there are really great recruiters out there, whether internal or in the agency environment, who read through everything and question. So I find that in the interview, the initial sort of engagement or interview with a recruiter, most will ask a lot of questions. And we have come across individuals whom you have to ask why they've left out certain things, and they've really done great within their employers, but have left out this information. You do find people who will leave out information such as a higher qualification because they think that they're going to put themselves at a disadvantage. So you will find ladies actually are the ones that do that a lot. I don't know why we hold back, but you'll find someone who has a specialized qualification or a PhD, not including it because she just thinks, well, I don't want to put myself out of the running. So you'd rather have everything there. People make decisions, or organizations will make a decision based on everything and offer what is fair in terms of the opportunity as well as remuneration.
Okay, I have a comment here from T who says, thank you for talking about the spice. I've been repeatedly told to add the spice, and the justification is if you get the job, you learn on the job, more like fake it till you make it. And she's always thought it's quite risky. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So I just want to move on to our next question. I had a few questions. So now we've talked about those that add the untruths on the CV, and then also people who leave things out. Given that it is possible to undersell yourself or oversell, misrepresent yourself on your CV, how useful are CV consultations with experienced coaches to help that?
I believe they are very useful as long as the individual actually explains why certain things need to be in your CV, and helps you particularly with the structure. I find that a lot of individuals struggle with that because, you know, they don't know where to put certain information. You'll find that in the coaching that we do, we actually go through everything to say, start with this, your name, this and that, up, you know, right to, you know, the last page and what you should have there. So there is, I think, a lot of good that, you know, the CV formatting businesses do for individuals looking for new opportunities.
Okay, thank you. And then, so I've got my CV, I've got all that. How do I attract or approach? Is it appropriate to approach the recruitment agents? What do you advise? Yeah.
Absolutely. So, you know that there are opportunities that are advertised all the time. Then there's times when one wants to test, you know, what's in the market and, you know, whether it makes sense to move and the like. And that's when one approaches these recruiters within agencies, or actually approaching individuals within an organization to find out if there are opportunities. But I believe that this approach has to be very structured, very targeted as well. You know, it's not a spray and hope approach. It's actually thinking, which industry do I think I fit in as a candidate? You know, what experience do I have that I could showcase? What qualifications do I have? You know, where are my earnings? They had to, you know, quiz me further. What would I tell them would like to earn in the future? So yes, one can approach recruiters. I think it's just important to you know, keep in mind always that whoever you're approaching, it's another human on the other side. So yes, so you do find, I think sometimes I read things on LinkedIn and I cringe because people are always bashing. Oh, okay, let me not say always, but you do come across, you know, a lot of bashing of recruiters. Oh, this didn't happen and ABC. But then in some cases, you look back and you think, you know, the individual actually did not use the right approach. And at the end of the day, I'm not saying that recruiters should hold anyone at ransom. It's just that they also think of how they're going to represent an individual who cannot approach things in maybe, you know, a nice way, if I could put it that way. So if someone's going to send me an email with the subject line jobs, and then there's a CV and it says, yeah, I'm looking for a job, and that's it. I don't know. Yeah, I must figure everything out. I don't know whether I want to expose clients, an individual that, you know, cannot you know, take the time to present themselves properly, because at the end of the day, they will be a representation of that organization. And it just takes one really thinking about what it is they want to put across and, you know, saying it out. So make sure the CV is great, make sure there's a great cover letter, maybe 2 paragraphs that really talk about who you are, what you do, what experience you have, as well as what you are looking for, why you're approaching that individual. So don't just say job application, because the person will ask, so was there something advertised that you are interested in a certain business unit in our organization? Okay, great, these are your skills. Maybe there will be something in the next 6 months, or we will be recruiting for something in the next month or so. Hang on, we will contact you. So that's how it goes, really.
Okay, so I'm hearing that job search is not necessarily just sending our CVs everywhere we can think about. It sounds like some networking skills are needed there.
Absolutely. Absolutely, there are. And research skills as well. You know, there's a way of approaching organizations confidentially and just saying, this is who I am, this is what I do, I'm looking for these opportunities. For a certain people at a certain level, it really works well, because there's a time when you do not, excuse me, You do not want to be sending your CV.
I see. Okay. Tell
Sorry,
us more.
all over the place. You do not want, your CV on a job portal, for example. And you also, some individuals are in positions that, are very, would I say, very important to certain spaces. The market is so small. You do not want people knowing that you are actually, looking for new opportunities. It could upset a few things. In some cases, even a stock price, and you know how it goes. Everybody gets alarmed. So if the CEO of a company suddenly puts his CV all over, there's questions about, what's happening within the organization. Yeah.
Okay, so that's really important, because I find most roles at that level actually also rest on the networks that you have. So how does somebody in their mid-career build those networks that they need for when they get to executive level? What tips would you have for somebody at that stage?
I would say that, once in a while, look at who operates within, the sector that one is working in, who the movers and shakers are. Try to attend, events that, could be aligned to your sector. If you can get the contact details of those individuals, ask for a coffee at least and an exploratory discussion. People either say yes or no. If someone says no, you thank them and move on. If they say yes, great, you've got an opportunity, to make an impact that will last. So it's a matter of chance, I suppose. It's just being structured about how you approach everything.
Okay, so one key word I'm hearing is we need structure. We need to be intentional about how we do it.
Yes.
And also, one of the key things is, I heard you say that the recruiter represents you. So are recruiters selective about who they represent?
I would say not really, because it is in their interest to represent everybody. But recruiters, I think, if you work within the sector over years, you'll get to know a lot about, certain individuals. For example, there are people that are known to approach recruiters every year looking for the next opportunity. So if your profile says every year you're moving, then we know that, this is an individual you'd rather advise to stay where they are for at least 3 years and have something to prove. And I believe that there's also something about the quality of engagements that one has with recruiters that also influences, perceptions and how they represent individuals. Because at the end of the day, you can have the best technical experience, but if you're not a fit into a certain place, or maybe the culture will be a challenge, recruiters mostly will point it out to their clients to say, yes, great profile here, but this is what my experience has been. So you'll find that the things that get in the way of somebody being represented to an organization are not necessarily their experience at times. It's sometimes flirt with the recruiter. He or she is not going to be too happy about that. I say if you flirt, I know it's a terrible example, but it does happen. So someone gets there and starts asking, inappropriate questions. Of course, as a recruiter, I will go and say to my client, I've met this person. They're great on paper, but this was my experience. So you make a decision about whether or not you want to take it forward.
Oh, wow. Okay. You guys experience interesting stuff. Okay.
Very interesting.
Yeah. And then there's the, certain questions that get asked in the interviews. One of the most uncomfortable ones that people say is, what's your salary expectation? People tend to have a money issue. People tend to not even know, especially when you're desperate to get the job. What do you say, at that stage?
I always advise individuals to approach this in a very reasonable manner. I think any recruiter will tell you about how organizations, and this is within the South African context again, in case someone in another territory is listening, will always want to give you better than the last. They will add a few things to sweeten the deal. So you'll find that it could be at inflation or a little bit more. Up to 10% maybe, that's reasonable. 15% is if there's a huge pull factor and they're trying to lure you in. 20% or some sign-on bonuses could be that these are skills that are so critical and scarce, and they are in competition with another organization, and basically will throw money at at an individual just to lure them away. So I always believe that the best is to first do a bit of research about what people earn. Sometimes it's difficult to get that information, but also be reasonable about what the expectations are and maybe work backwards. So think about what you actually want to net, what you want coming into your bank account at the end of each month, and work backwards with that. And I'm sure most HR departments will help you then, with the calculation and a dummy pay slip, just to show you whether or not it would make sense, what the deductions will be and the like. But work backwards and see what the cost to company will be at the end of the day. I think it's the best way actually to let an organization know exactly what it is that you would like from them.
Okay, so
and if you are, pardon?
The net is the best way.
Yes, if you talk about that, because you find that you could be on R1 million a year and you're netting a good 65 each month. I think that's what you'd be netting, or even a little bit less, maybe 55 sometimes, depending on what the deductions will be. And if you move to another organization that's offering maybe 1.5 and you haven't really checked what deductions or benefits they have, you might find yourself still netting that 50 or 55. And a lot of individuals won't be happy with that, especially if circumstances change. What if you now have to travel quite a lot to get to your office? If you've been based in Joburg and driving between Bryanston and Sandton, suddenly you have to drive from Bryanston to Pretoria every day. It really changes what's going to be in your pocket. So you just put everything into perspective. Speak to recruiters who work within the executive search space. They're very good at sort of advising you on that, because they work with individuals who've been headhunted, and who are very, I suppose, particular about what it is that they'll be offered, and want to ensure everything's covered.
Everything is in place.
Yes.
So we've covered this on an exec level. I know your specialist area is exec. When we speak of your junior employees, and normally desperation is the thing, what would you advise? Is it advisable to almost say, I don't know, in the interview, or what do you give them? Because there's not a lot of tools in terms of researching. What's a good answer for somebody who doesn't know what salary they should be getting?
So one has a base to work from usually if they are employed. If it's an entry-level individual, the conversation will be a little bit different. But one always has, if they're employed, they have a base to work from. So again, think of that 10% increase, or well, 6 to 10% increase, or even 15, and at what level the role will be. You'll find that some organizations actually have bands that you need to fit into. So if you are moving from one band to another, there's quite a significant increase. But I would always think that one from a junior to mid-level should just be honest with the recruiter about what exactly it is that they want. And honesty doesn't mean being unreasonable. No one is going to double your salary. It hardly ever happens. It hardly ever happens. So, just be reasonable, think about what would make sense and move on from there. Don't shortchange yourself, because then you'll always be catching up. And it's quite difficult to get to another organization and explain, oh, I had to take this salary because I was, really desperate for an opportunity and I was being modest, or whatever happened. And you try to say that to them, well, my peers seem to be earning this. And if it's, I think, beyond the margin that an organization would actually, offer, they're not going to do it.
Okay. So I like that, because I think in the honeymoon phase, or in the excitement of getting a role, there's some things that as job seekers, we don't pay a lot of attention to. I say we, but I mean job seekers. So somebody asks a different question. What do you think about when you want to change industries? They keep hearing the transferable skills. What would those be? If you want to shift from one industry to the other, what type of strategies would you recommend there?
Lost you for a bit there.
Oh, sorry. I was saying, the question says, you always hear the word transferable skills. What would you advise a person to focus on when they're looking to shift and change industries altogether? So they have experience in the one industry and they want to move to the other, where maybe they've got a qualification and not as much experience. What would you advise?
Okay, I think the best thing to start off with is assessing what would actually attract an organization in the other industry to, what would make you attractive to them, and working on that. So if it means that you need to have a certain level of experience in, some technical thing, then try and negotiate with the organization that is your current employer to actually expose you to that. You will find that there are people who have a certain qualification, particularly, I think a lot of engineers tend to, let me not say a lot, but I've come across a number of engineers that tend to redirect their path to the banking sector, to the management consulting sector. So I think it starts off with where they are and what it is that can be done to actually expose them to this. Also on the other side, you'll find that there are organizations with programs that actually bring individuals with, I think, certain qualifications, but not exactly the experience that would be required, and actually put them on a training course or a development course, and they can fit in within the sector or for that particular organization. So it's just looking at what the options are for you to make the move across. If you have to get another qualification, do that. If you have to get certain training within your current employer, do that. If you have to be exposed to a certain business unit, then ask for that move across. And, or maybe sacrifice time if it means that you'll get, extra hours to go and work in another department. Just do that until you can actually present yourself to another organization as someone who's knowledgeable in what they're looking for. So it does happen that, people move and, take a totally different path. And I think one important thing as well is doing enough research to find out which sectors have an interest in the sector that you're currently in. There's a time that we noticed a trend of the banks or financial services industry organizations recruiting quite a number of individuals from the FMCG and retail sector, particularly individuals within the marketing and insight space, because they understand, dealing with consumers very well. So you'll find that a lot of individuals were headhunted out of their spaces in retail and FMCG into the financial services space to actually set up, the new way of doing business and treating customers fairly, and it's been a success. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, because I think, millennials tend to shift. You reach your 30s or your 40s and you start to be like, actually, I'm not going to do this forever. And it's really encouraging to know that you can reinvent yourself in your career, and it's never too late to work in your dream space.
Absolutely.
Now for the more senior, there's another question around moving from being a consultant to joining the workforce, because we know a lot of small businesses have suffered over the lockdown, and people are starting to think, maybe I should get a job, maybe I should just, stop running my own business. Would that be a category that you're able to support, and any high level advice for them?
Yes, I have come across individuals who have been running small businesses, who have spoken about, wanting to, wanting that stability and wanting to go back into corporate. And it's very possible our coaching does cover that, in the sense that, again, you always assess where one is and what the skills are that can then, be taken to the other side. And I believe that organizations also find these individuals quite attractive, because they know how to make things happen even in the most difficult of times.
Yes.
So if you have run, say, a small digital agency and have done quite well, but feel that you need to make that switch, imagine what a big organization could do with those skills within their marketing department. It's highly likely that they'll want someone who's had that experience. Yeah, you could go and set up an agency within an organization. So it does work.
Okay, that's really encouraging, because I have a lot of colleagues in the industry who are like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. It's really tough. It's tough when the market is good, and when the market is going down, it's even tough on small businesses. So I think it's quite encouraging to say, even if you've left corporate a couple of years ago, there is opportunity, and your experience as an entrepreneur is not a waste.
Mm-hmm. And the value that you can bring. I think one of the things that we learn as entrepreneurs is, how to bring value, extract value from certain opportunities. So if that's one of the things that you highlight to a prospective employer, I think they'll be quite interested, because they know that the investment that they're going to make bringing you into their fold will pay eventually.
Okay. Thank you for that. So what I'm hearing as a golden thread throughout what you've said is about the job seeker needs to understand their value and not overstate it for the role they've applied for, or maybe not undersell themselves as well. So that takes a bit of self-awareness and honesty with yourself as a job seeker. So what if, after all the work, I've networked, I've got this pretty CV, what if I get rejected? What then?
And it does happen so many times. I think it's important to just be graceful and accepting, and moving on from it. In some cases, you will be told why. If that information is helpful at all, use it to develop yourself. In other cases, you're not told, but you've already had that experience. You can assess, what actually happened along the way and what one could do better. And sometimes really it's not a matter of doing better, it's just that an organization chose the candidate that they thought was the best fit for them. So it's not really a reflection of you as an individual, it's just what the organization chose. I think one shouldn't take it to heart, unless you come across someone quite horrible, who then say, oh, you didn't make it because of, and that it's not true. Then it's a very different approach.
Okay. I remember more than 10 years ago when I was in corporate, then we used to call it a person job match. And it was, your highly experienced and qualified candidates sometimes were not a match for that specific role. So I think that's a very important point that you bring across. There's something I wrote down in my notes you said earlier on about women who will remove their high qualifications from their CVs. And maybe because they've been told you're overqualified so many times that is becoming a bad thing. Any advice on how to balance the two? I'm overqualified, but I'm unemployed. So how does that person work around that?
I believe that one can only be truthful about where they are and what they have. If you've worked hard for something like a qualification and it is yours, there is no reason why another individual should tell you that you're overqualified. So I think you can actually push back to say, no, but I worked for this and
Yeah.
it should count to something. Yes, maybe most of the individuals that one will be up against do not have the same, but it doesn't mean that one shouldn't be considered. And everything can be negotiated. So the organization has to also be very honest about what it is that they can or can't do. We know that, individuals at a certain level with certain qualifications will always, expect more in terms of remuneration. So if the organization can't do that, but can offer a very good opportunity for them to be in a position and grow, then that's what they should be selling to this individual at the end of the day. I don't believe that anyone should ever have to dim themselves just to fit into an opportunity. Then it's not for you. Don't do it. You will not like it. You will not stay within that organization for very long, because it will always be at the back of your mind that that was not, considered.
Okay. So what you're basically saying is don't reduce your value just because you didn't get a role at whatever level you're applying.
Absolutely. Have confidence. Sometimes we come across candidates who are so confident and know how to sell themselves so well, but are the ones that actually have challenges such as not having qualifications beyond a certain point, but they know how to ask, they know how to sell. They'll even push back when it comes to certain things. You tell them one thing, they've got something to say to ensure that, their profile is there. I think we just need to boost confidence, believe in ourselves as people, and know that there is no way that one can be excluded from a process if they have all the experience and the right qualifications.
Okay. So we've also established that sometimes there's quite a lot of applicants and it's not just the one person. So
sorry, Lona, I lost you again, so I didn't quite hear what you said.
Perhaps my signal is, but I was saying we've experienced that it's not one person that applies, it's not one person that gets shortlisted. So taking the feedback personally, the negative feedback, yes, you take it for your development, but if that stops you from being on the job market, that then becomes self-sabotage, because it is what it is. There's a high number of applicants and fewer jobs. That's what the market looks like. So I would like to take a pause and really maybe if you can tell us what type of things you can help people to have confidence when they, your package, I know, starts from job seeking to CVs to how to present yourself and so on. So I just like to give you some time to give some insight for people who are feeling discouraged on the job market and how to differentiate themselves. I know we can't cover an entire coaching session in the 15 minutes we have left, but just a highlight of what somebody would expect if they came to you for your help.
Okay, so the coaching package really starts off with assessing where one is. So it's not a one size fits all, because some of the things that are covered in the guide that we use are not really relevant to individuals at a certain level. So we have to pick and choose based on what we receive. Usually starting off with, assessing one's CV, where they are, what they earn, what exactly it is that they're looking for. It starts off with that conversation just to gauge where they are mentally as well. And then sort of plotting, areas that you need to encourage, plotting areas that may need a bit of development or coaching on, and then tailoring it, for that individual. But basically, we will cover things like, the market conditions. So it starts off with all the research on the individual as well as the market conditions. So if someone comes to me and says, I'm in the publishing sector and if the move to digital has really affected us, our organization is downsizing, I want to work for another publisher, the first question that I need to ask is, do you think another publisher won't do the same thing, or they are not experiencing the same thing? Are they really where you want to go? In some cases, someone's skills are not very transferable to another space. So you just look for the ones that would, make the most sense to approach and present that individual to. So it's market conditions, looking at your sector and other markets. Then we go through what we've mentioned before, like looking at one's profile and CVs, making sure that you prepare the best one for that individual, putting it in a certain format, looking at their social media and, in relation to recruitment. So I'm talking about LinkedIn. I won't go into someone's Facebook profile or the like.
Are you sure?
Well, you do research on individuals, but I'm not going to tell you how to structure that. I mean, because right now some organizations actually check through your social media, tell people to be very careful what you have there, because those reports then are given to prospective employers and they form a certain opinion of you. Then just ensuring that, once the CV, which is the foundation, is good, ensuring this individual knows how to present themselves. If you're going to send your CV somewhere, know how to, write a good introductory letter. Call it the cover letter. It doesn't have to be in the CV. It doesn't have to be a separate document. It could be the actual email that one sends. And also just sort of advising someone through a recruitment process so that they know what to share, where to draw the line on certain things, and how to actually negotiate certain things. And the fact that you negotiate everything before you sign an offer. You don't go off and sign something, then suddenly say, oh, by the way, I need to pick up my kids at this time every day. You don't have bargaining power there usually. And also just, I think what the coaching covers as well is trying to talk individuals through the first 3 months. It's a very critical time. So the first 3 months with a new employer, if one is then successful, that is covered as well, because one needs to ensure that they're actually in the right environment, that, whoever they are reporting to is aware of certain things about them, will be able to make a very informed decision about their future within the organization. So ensuring that if there's any development areas that are identified either in the recruitment process through psychometric testing, or the ones that are identified once one joins, they're addressed, and you ensure that the first 3 months are the smooth transition. Otherwise, that's where things fall apart. People tell you, I hate that place, I want to leave, and I'm not, going to stay for too long. And you find someone out of a job because they could not cope within a certain environment, or the environment is actually, or people in the environment are actually not happy with their performance because they are just not aligning as well as they should within the organization. So those are the things that are covered, right up to what we've spoken about dealing with a declined application. It does happen. I've come across people who write on, platforms like LinkedIn to say, they applied to 59 jobs, got 59 rejections, and 60th was what worked. But attitude there was very important, because when someone says no, you think, let me move on to the next. So it's a very consultative way of working. There's advice, but there's also getting something from that individual and using it to prop them up as well. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, it sounds it sounds quite scientific. So I don't just get up and dust my CV and throw it to the wind and hope that that works.
No.
It explains a lot. It explains a lot. Thobi, maybe as one of the closing questions, or maybe I'm opening another can of worms, we are now getting a lot of online interviews. And just what tips would you have for somebody to prepare for their Zoom or Teams interview? They are sitting at home, maybe children are still at home. Any tips around that?
Yes. I think that our whole year has been that way. I can't remember the last time I sat across from someone really and, had to speak to them about, new opportunities. It's a lot of stuff that's done online. I think it's just important to be well prepared as what you would be if you were going to meet with, someone within an organization, but also ensuring everything that supports you in this then is also prepared and works properly. So making sure whatever device you're going to use, be it your phone, or your laptop or a PC, actually has, enough power to last the conversation. If you don't have, access to uncapped data, then ensuring that you've got enough in your phone. If you would rather people have a telephonic with you because the connection is unstable, then do that. And also putting up whatever disclaimers. So, there are moms with, little toddlers, and really you can't expect a child to go and sit in a corner and do nothing for an hour. It's impossible. So just saying to people, I've got children, and if you see a little person maybe running past, please, don't mind me. That's the setup in my home. So I think it's just good to say what the circumstances are and then working with that.
Okay. And then in terms of, we've seen so much briefs of what your background must look like, what your lighting must look. Does any of that matter in recruitment?
I think to a certain extent, yes. One won't have an interview with someone whilst they're sitting on their unmade bed. It's got nothing to do with us, really. We shouldn't be checking what's in people's homes, but it does. It's impossible not to notice and wonder what else could be going on. So just best to sit in a neutral environment. For example, I'm in the dining area. All one can see is a mirror and a light behind me, and that's it. There's nothing distracting as well.
Okay.
So if there was a TV maybe playing in the background, then the other person's attention keeps shifting between, what's on my screen and what I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay. I can imagine that it was a bit of a shift for many people to start to say, oh, I've got an interview, but it's online and so on. And so this is really helpful. We possibly know that you go to face-to-face interviews, you sit with a panel, and now it's all on the screen. So I'm really excited that you're seeing clients and helping them in terms of boosting their confidence in how they present themselves. I went through this process to find out what happens, and I was just like, wow, okay. I think it's quite a whole lot of things. For me, I'm in the industry, and I was wowed in that there's just a lot that goes into the career coaching, especially that is focused on job seeking. In terms of getting hold of you, where can our clients get hold of Thobi?
I think the best would be an email, thobi@bizpreneur.co.za. So that's THOBI@bizpreneur.co.za. I also do have a WhatsApp for business number that I'm very comfortable giving to individuals. You can't call the number, but you can send a WhatsApp to it. And it's 067 200 5330. So that's strictly like for professional purposes. 067 200 5330.
Okay, so
Mm,
you and I know that recruitment and getting jobs, it's really, really broad. So what
mm,
we've done this evening was really surface, maybe a conversation starter. There could be somebody out there who says, I wish you had gone deeper. I wish you had given me more detail. I'm not an exec, or I'm an exec. We decided to make it general so that everybody gets some idea of what not to do when you're looking for a job and what to do. But there's obviously a customized approach to your job search. So if you want to contact Thobi, or you want to contact any of our other coaches on the team, just check our website, bizpreneur.co.za, or any of our online platforms on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram. I think our Twitter is not very well managed at the moment. We don't check it often, but you can find us on any of the platforms, and then we can guide what type of help you need at this time, because whether you're growing your business, growing your career and trying to go up the ladder, we have somebody for you in our team. So thank you, Thobi. Just maybe 1 minute to close, and then we can go offline.
Okay, right. Thank you very much to everyone for joining us. I hope this information was very, valuable to those that had joined us. And we look forward to hearing, to individuals that would like more.
Thank you. So I wish everybody a good evening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time, and we'll advertise what the topic will be for that. Thank you.